Whoa, Mondo cool.
That's right, boys. Mondo cool.
Welcome to Crash Course. This is going to be a very small pod, and that's kind of the way I want to keep it. I want to keep it nice, I want to keep it brief, but I want to keep it focused. I want to keep it under an hour if possible. If we go over that, it's because we're passionate. I'm not going to ding any points for that. No podcast gold stars either. I want to make it bite-sized so we can have good engagement, so we can have people interested, and to have these podcasts be evergreen as much as possible. The point of this show is to be as topic focused as we can. And it's really got to do with the things that are on our mind, the things we can't get rid of, the things that kind of eat at us. And, we got to have somewhere to put it. And that's kind of what this is for Noah and myself. And it's something we've been talking about a little bit in our dealings. This right now is not going to be a always thing. This is going to be as needed. And I kind of want that little filler week between podcasts to be for this and light content, small essays, small pods, that sort of thing. Very focused, very tight, but also with a good degree of levity. I don't want it to be serious conversations about games necessarily, but really, if the conversation goes that way, or my platform here, if I want to really take it the distance I can, And the topic this week, the thing I wanted to focus on is games that have, quote, the juice. And it's a weird title. How do you go about talking about games like this? What do I mean when I say games have the juice? These specific games that I picked have the juice. Not games that are important. I want to stress that. They're not important games necessarily. They're important to me. They may not be important to you. But I think each offers something interesting that you can't find really anywhere else. I've picked 5. They were kind of random, but they kind of came, stream of consciousness to me. When I wrote them down, I was like, these are the ones for sure. I love these games. They are part of my, if I don't have anything else to play, I play these in regular quantities. You can't. A couple of these games have a start and finish, but there is a mechanical satisfaction I get from them that I can't get in any other game or rarely any other games. So, disclaimer, I might have some ADHD. I don't know. I have not been diagnosed. There's plenty of symptoms. It's one of those things you just kind of live with. Your parents go like, hey, you're good to go, buddy. I mean, just kind of suck it up sort of thing. You just don't ever think about it. But enough instances throughout life, I've gone like, okay, I might have this. I might have this ADHD. I might have this restless leg syndrome, whatever you want to call it. Not a victim. That's not the point. The point is it's hard for me to have rapt attention to something for a period of time. And these games here, they don't waste your time. They are special. They're important. Their mechanics are interesting. And I think they're all worth looking at. And the reason each are important to me differ. I was in different points of my life playing these games, for sure. But I want to start with the one that I always think about when I think of indie video as a whole, writ large, and it is Creature in the Well. Creature in the Well is a pinball-like isometric third-person. Hack and slash isn't really a right term because there's not enemies per se. It's a pinball-like with a twist. Yoku's Island Express. You play a little dung beetle who rolls on a little pinball. Very similar in terms of we're taking a concept that people have made and we are spinning it off into something new, while still retaining that essence of why we're wanting to ape this concept, this specific concept. And Creature in the Well does this so well. You're just a robot. You're a robot. You got a little staff. You are in this kind of desert area, kind of desolate. There is a abandoned town, so you think, um, and you're kind of in the bowels of like this machine, this well, if you will. I mean, kind of the namesake of the game, creature in the well. You are trying to open these doors and go through the levels to the end of the game, obviously. But there's some like satisfaction, there's some nuance in each room that you can find um, that you use pinball mechanics to kind of navigate. So the best way to describe this is you are the flicker of the pinball ball, shall we say? You're the button to hit it. You basically your character is a robot. He carries a staff. The staff is it can be kind of whatever. You collect staffs throughout the game. They have different perks. Some are good, some are bad. It depends on how you want to play the game. Really, they are tailored to your style. And then there's cosmetics on top of that. But as for the actual mechanics, you are basically catching catching these like floating motes of light that are basically pinballs for all intents and purposes. And as you continue on to the game, and depending on what item you're using, you can harvest these balls and ping them at kind of barriers. Think of them as like road barriers or blockades, pinball like items in the environment to rack up an energy score that will let you exit a certain. So it's basically a linear path with some exit dungeons and side areas, side hustles, I'll call them. And you basically are trying to power these doors to go through them and reach the end of the stage level. What do you want to say? But there's some satisfaction I find in finishing a run of this game, and it's not run based. I just like playing it over and over. And there's not a lot of variation in terms of your play necessarily. I mean, your tools accepting, um, but you are just kind of methodically going from room to room, racking up energy. Some are just puzzles. Some are just not platforming, but interesting ways to navigate an environment. You kind of have to bring this moto light here to open up this path there, and energize this door. Oh, I don't have enough for this door. I'm going to go back and go through an extra room. It's just, it's kind of like going through the motions of the game. I don't know. There's something meditative about it. There's nothing like outstanding about the presentation either, really. I think it looks nice. I think it definitely plays well. The music is good, but there's nothing to write home about necessarily. Um, but yeah, the special thing in this game is the meditative quality that I find myself in when I play it. It is just a start to finish. Not a club banger, but it's like I don't know. It's like a soothing R&B ballad. I mean, it's a rhythmic. It's methodical. It's um, decently well told. I mean, the thing that I love about this game is the playing of it, and I think that it's a lost art. Games that are fun, games that you want to return to. Everything needs to be long. Everything needs to be live service. Everything needs to be the end all be all, the ultimate game, the only game you ever play. And this is not one of those. It is one game. It is start to finish. You start it up, you finish it. I have played this, like I said, 3 times. And every time I play it, I just love it to pieces. I get everything. It's a very attainable game to 100%. And depending on the game, you know, I I have this quality about myself. I want to finish things. I want to finish games 100%, especially if I love them. There's some begrudging things I've done for getting 100% finishing of games. I don't recommend it, especially if you don't like anything. I did this recently with Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I liked that game to start, but by the 160th hour of completing it 100%, you are skipping dialogue. You are breezing through fights because you are totally, totally overpowered. You are just so done with it by the time you're finished. I finished that last DLC, which is, well, by most people's metrics, is pretty good. It's the Atlantis DLC. Um, Definitely a rabbit hole, but in all those hours I spent playing this game, it didn't reach a mechanical, a story, a presentation level of satisfaction that I liked. I felt like I was beholden to it in a way, and I'm glad that this game, that games like it, are short. They're sweet. They want to tell you something. They want to show you something, and they're not going to waste your life doing it. I really respect it for that. I think that's why this game has the juice. It never feels like it's wasting your time. It's fun to finish, 100%, start to finish. It has some interesting mechanics to it in a way I had never seen up until this point. Um, there are some games like it, but there's nothing quite like Creature of the Well. That's why it's on this list. It has the juice because of a million things, I think, and it just executes on a pristine level at almost everything it does. So Creature of the Well, this is an unranked list. This is just my list. I just put it up. This is what I want to go with. So Creature of the Well is definitely on the games that have the juice. So Creature of the Well is definitely worth playing. It's on basically everything. I played it. I finished it on Switch, on PC, and on PlayStation. Platinum did on PlayStation 4, I guess. I'm not sure if there's a 5 version. If there's a 5 version, I might go back and get all the trophies in that too. So that's definitely number one. Number two, it is a complicated one. It's one. It's one that I, I just want to finish it completely, but there's that thing holding me back, you know. But even saying that, I know that I might get there one day. It is Dying Light. Dying Light. I'm not a big zombie game player, like in terms of genre. Not my thing. Not my thing. Um, People go gaga over the zombie modes and all the Black Ops games. I've been of the opinion that, hey, we should, just spin this thing off. I mean, get your celebrity cameos in, let your zombies go wild. I mean, just do the zombie thing. Um, and in terms of zombie games, there's no more developer more prolific at making them than either Capcom with Dead Rising or Techland with the Dead Island and then the Dying Light games. I mean, there's an old saying, and I'm a big fan of Giant Bomb content. At least back in the day. Some of the stuff nowadays not my favorite, still good. But Ryan Davis, the late Ryan Davis, rest in peace. He talked about good tech land and bad tech land, and what he meant by that is Dead Island One is a fun game, but it's not a very good game. Um, and Dead Island Riptide was even less of it. But when you get good tech land, like really good tech land, they really nail it. I think Dying Light 1 specifically is their crowning achievement so far. And they updated this game for years and years. There is multiple DLCs, multiple cosmetics. It really just sings when it comes to the customization of your character, the presentation, the sound. The sound is maybe the most important part. The music, the traversal. It is a complete package. It feels like a polished AAA video game. And the fact that they kept it up, kind of making it a pseudo live service, very interesting. It's not live service, but the way they supported it felt like it. Um, they had a lot of paid content for sure. Most of it was paid content. And the following DLC, if you have not played it or played Dying Light at all, is excellent. I am a sucker for car customization for sure. I love car customization, and this game has it. So to get real into it, Dying Light, it is basically Train to Busan by way of what do you call it? Brick towers. I mean, it's parkour zombie fighting, shoot 'em up. I mean, it's hard to explain. It feels like the Raid married Shaun of the Dead. That sort of oeuvre. There's some sort of dark comedy to the whole thing. You are you're dropping you're drop kicking zombies off of high rises and skyscrapers. It is funny. It's just objectively. So it is just a funny thing to watch, a funny thing to see. When you see it, you will laugh, and when you do it, it will never get old. Drop kicking zombies off of skyrises is a fundamental quality mechanically of this game that I really enjoy. The reason I think this game has the juice, and that I think Dying Light is definitely worth the squeeze, is the day night mechanics. The day night mechanics coupled with the traversal, which I think is just unassailable. There is maybe Titanfall 1 and 2 are the only games that have gotten first person traversal right without making you feel sick. Because people will say Mirror's Edge. Everyone will say Mirror's Edge. They're wrong. Mirror's Edge is just fine. You don't need to play Mirror's Edge. It's okay. People will say it's like the best thing in the world. The point is, Mirror's Edge made me sick. Made a lot of people sick. It's a good video game. I just couldn't play it in large chunks, small doses for sure. And I just think Dying Light nails the feeling of traversal without getting your brain in a twist, and that's hard to do. It's very hard to do. I'm not a motion sick person, and I was kind of worried about that going in with Dying Light if I would become that because I was going like, hey, I like this game. I'm playing a lot of it. Is it going to affect me long term in terms of just, am I going to get a little woozy going left to right, up and down, going very quickly? I mean, is it going to be tough on me? And no, they really just nail the feeling of it, the speed, the locomotion, coupled with the mechanics of the day-night cycle. It becomes a harrowing experience at night. It is one of the scariest games you can play, flat out. I have a pretty iron stomach for horror games, like really iron stomach. I'm pretty seasoned. I mean, I'm watching pretty tough horror movies. I'm playing pretty much every big horror game came out. I played Dead Space, the remake, barely even flinched. I kind of just sop it up like a rag, and maybe it's because I'm desensitized. I really don't know. Um, but Dying Light, to this day, might be the game that scared me the most. I did everything I could to avoid going out at night. And it's tough to do that, especially when you need resources. And this kind of segues into me wanting to complete this game. There are certain trophies, there are certain things you need to do, certain milestones, certain equipment you need to get. And the only things the best things you need require certain elements that are in more supply or only found at night. And you usually get them from tough enemies or places that you can't normally get to in the day. And it is so scary. It's so scary because it's not just a night in Dying Light. You got to understand, it is pitch black, pitch black. I mean, you can see your hands in front of you, sort of black, and you can see the outline of Haran, the city, the outskirts. You can only see so much in front of you. That's what makes it so scary. And it's beautiful for that. I love that about this game. And that kind of segues also into the sound design of this game. This game is crunchy. This game is wet. This game is, it wants to break you. It wants to mulch you up. It is such a achievement of sound design. You feel like you're there. It feels like things are crawling across your shoulders, especially when you're wearing a headset. There's this sort of binaural audio going on. It is just unbelievable. It is. I mentioned Dead Space, the most recent one, and even the original. There has not been a game I feel that has surpassed the original Dead Space, except for maybe the remake or Dying Light. Um, the story, not anything to write home about. Not really. It's fine. Your character is stock standard white protagonist who is a mail carrier, basically Norman Reedus from Death Stranding, but he sucks. He's more agile, whatever, but he's a mailman. He's basically not even apocalyptic mailman. The game basically revolves around the Olympics, which is a really interesting setting. It's really cool. It's sort of this Middle Eastern Olympics in this fake city called Haran. I think it's fake anyway. I don't want to just talk out of my rear end. But basically there's an outbreak and they have to shut down the games. Like during the games, they have to shut it down. And as far as it's shown, at least in the first one, I haven't played that much of the second one. It seems like a localized event. It seems like Iran, the Olympics, everything. It might have had to do with blood transfusions and blood work being done for Olympia people, and it's an interesting setting to be sure. But your character is not anyone to write home about. That's for sure. But yeah, like I said, the setting very interesting. Sound design, the the darkness, the day night cycle. The combat's actually really good, really good. They kind of had these hallmarks in their original Dead Island games, where you can target a body part just by kind of aiming the camera and swinging your weapon. It's really interesting because enemies react really well to your attacks. It's the feedback loop of this game, the push and pull of the systems in your character is very interesting. I find it very similar to like a Death Stranding, which I mentioned earlier, where the game is tugging at you, pulling at you, it's resisting you, and it feels like this is doing the same thing. A lot of it is so hostile to you. It's so rare in games these days where you are actually challenged. When you are actually challenged, and Dying Light, it's got the juice because of all these reasons. I think it is so worth it. You should check out this game. It is not for the squeamish. It is not for the easily scared. It is not for the person that wants to have a relaxing experience. You kind of have to lock in for this. Um, and I think you'll be happy you did. It is an excellent video game. So I'm not going to try to move too fast. I'm about 2 out of 5 points in, but that's my second one. Dying Light for sure. So worth your time. Um, a very different game I want to talk about. A completely different game. I mean, I can't think of a more opposite game, maybe. It's not all sunshine and roses, but it's a different genre. It's a different viewpoint. It is a different thing entirely. It's Into the Breach. Into the Breach is the best game you have not played. Straight up. It is an incredible video game. I wish it was on more platforms. It is only on PC and Switch, as far as I understand. And it's such a bummer because I've beaten this game, oh my gosh, countless times. I think I've beaten this game 30, 40 times, and I've gotten pretty much everything. Um, there's different there's different difficulty levels. If you beat the game on certain difficulty levels with certain squads, that sort of thing, you unlock different things to bring with you in your next run. So it is basically an isometric mech puzzle strategy game. So it's usually not my cup of tea, really. I've tried years and years to get into strategy games, turn-based games, and when they grab you, they really grab you for sure. I think Final Fantasy Tactics Advance is a great example of this for me. It really just grabs hold of you and doesn't let go. It's that isometric strategy game that is sticky. I like games that stick with you, and they stick with me. Um, and this is one of those. Into the Breach is definitely one of those. It is a think of it like Terminator, where the future is kind of overrun by these insect-like creatures. They're basically kaiju that are burrowing down from either the sea or the ground, and they're basically wrecking the future. So this time traveler has this device that can take you back and forth. And when you will fail a run, which you inevitably will, you'll go back to the start and try again. And you will have failed that timeline, basically. Um, and every run, basically, you have 3 units, and you can assign different pilots that have different specialties to each. Not going to get into too many nitty gritty details about it, but think of it like Evangelion meets Mech Warrior by way of Pacific Rim. That's a great way to put it, probably. A little convoluted the way I kind of set it up, dressed it up, but it's got that sort of mechanical feel to it that you're a guy in a mech and you have these abilities, and you're basically not trying to have the perfect run. You're trying to minimize damage. You are you are protecting city grids. You're protecting small towns. You're protecting satellite towers. You're trying to be the beacon of hope to a failing timeline where these enemies are attacking, and you are trying to do your best and just defend everything, and you're going to lose. That's what I love about it. It feels inevitable. The odds are so stacked against you. You're not trying to make the perfect run. You're trying to minimize casualties, trying to minimize damage. There's different meters for different things. There are casualties, which are civilians. If you get too many casualties in a match, you lose. Um, if you drop too much of your power grid, you lose. So there's different meters you kind of have to follow and juggle, and you depending on how well you do in a given setting, given match, everything is governed by a usually 5 turn system, depending on the difficulty level for sure. A 5 turn system where you kind of just have to last. You have to last out. You have to try to finish saving this town so the creatures kind of burrow back into the earth, and you have to mitigate as much damage as you can, as much collateral as you can. And the push pull of this game, the push pull of games like it, games that challenge you. I love this sort of thing, and it's been on my mind a lot. Things that stick with you. It's you're mitigating damage by putting yourself into harm's way. Where there is a yellow jacket looking kaiju, he's going to shoot at this building. There is going to be damage. How do you mitigate this? What tools do I have in my disposal? What can I use to destroy these threats, to move these threats? And that's where the puzzle kind of comes into it. That's where that aspect really comes in. You are trying to avoid disaster. And by doing so, you are using your tools. There are different mechs for different things. You kind of have your regular default squad. You kind of have some kind of high flying squad. You have like an electric squad. Things are kind of opening up throughout the game that change the ways you play. And it feels like there are endless combinations because at the end of some runs, gain the ability to kind of mix and match these different mech types. So fascinating. And there's different criteria for getting all the medals in the game, all the finishing touches. And I haven't even finished everything. I really haven't. Um, but I kind of just want to like change it up every once in a while, and it rewards you for doing that. Um, you're basically trying to stop them destroying an entire city block, killing a bunch of civilians in 5 turns. If you can do it to the best of your ability, you get rewarded on a star system, and there are bonus challenges that give you extra currency to spend in between each round until you finally basically clear every map and get to the burrow, the underground, and detonate the explosion that kills everything, and you win a run. Um, it's amazing. Into the Breach is amazing. It might be the top 10 game for me. I think it is a top 10 game for me. I kind of have a running list. When I think about the best games I've played in the last decade, it's up there. It is there. It is top 5. Into the Breach is worth the squeeze. It has the juice. It is the best turn-based game I've ever played. It is 100% worth every penny, every dime, every hour, every minute you spend with it. It rewards you consistently, often, always. And it's made by the guys who made FTL. So they're pretty good at what they do. Subset games, if you listen to this or if you hear from me, please put it on everything. I will play as much of this game as you let me play. And if you want to make a sequel, I would like that too, because that would be awesome. It is absolutely fantastic. Into the Breach, super worth your time. The next game, Hitman. Well, a trilogy of games, I guess. It is under the housing of one game now, which is kind of what makes it amazing. Kind of what gives it the ultimate juice in some way. In terms of bang for your buck, you're getting it here. It's Hitman World of Assassination. the trilogy. So, Hitman 1, the episodic based game from IO Interactive, the 2016 one. It is Hitman 2. I believe it's the 2018 one. I think it came out in 2018. And then the 2020 Hitman 3, all under one roof with all the DLC. These games are the best trilogy you haven't played. They are the best games of this decade. They are the best games of the last 20 years. Maybe the new Zeldas and Mario Odyssey accepting, they are maybe the greatest games ever. And I will stand by that. I will plant my flag on this hill that Hitman World of Assassination is deserving of your time. How to even start talking about this game? It is some of the best mechanical things I've seen introduced in a AAA video game. Everything is governed by kind of a clock. Everything is very clockwork. Everything is very methodical. Everything has a time and place. You are Agent 47. If you've played as the other in the other games, this is even a different thing. It's more akin to maybe a Blood Money than even the original or even Absolution, Hitman Absolution. Hitman Absolution is a very linear game, very front to back, very top to bottom. It's very story heavy. This game is and isn't, and Absolution is not very flexible in its way to play. This rewards your ingenuity, and it feels like at every turn the developers understood what game they were making, and it understood what opportunities they were going to present the player, and you are treated superbly for your ingenious, workings. Your actual doing the deed of killing these targets. You are rewarded with so many things. I mean, it is in terms of feedback loop of playing the game, earning rewards, jumping back in again. This game is unbeatable in that way. When I talk about Into the Breach, always encouraging player progression, player freedom. This is the epitome of that. They kind of have set stories in these huge maps, open world maps. They're kind of open world zones. And there's usually 5 to 6 in the base games for 1, 2, and 3. But there's multiple DLCs. There's a lot of content in here. How you would even tackle it? I would just play. If you're going to play it, you're going to play it beginning to end. And it's easy to with the World of Assassination. I don't know if they bundle it these days. I have no clue. But beginning to end, World of Assassination is immaculate. The story is actually really good and really worth your time. I mean, they don't stick every landing, they don't land every punch, but they swing for 3 games, and they weave a really compelling yarn, honestly, about a kind of agent with no identity, a blank slate, a character that is in search of himself almost, and he doesn't have that mooring to his life. His life is the work. And I find that so interesting how it kind of bobs and weaves you with every title. You're trying to figure out who this guy is, and in some ways he is a blank slate. In some ways he's his own character. And there's a lot of dry comedy in these games. There's a lot of wit. There's a lot of irreverent things about it. I could wax poetic about it all day. I really could, and I would love to. Honestly, on another one of these, I might just talk at length about every single game. That would be ideal. If anybody wanted to listen to that, I probably would do it. But we don't have time for that, at least today. So, why does this game have the juice? Why do these games have the juice? It's for everything I talked about before. It is the fact that it's all one package. I I think of these as a complete game, and it wasn't like that for a long time. We didn't know the kind of crescendo of releases, what they were going to be. We didn't know at the time, if every game was going to be episodic like the first one. We had no idea what cadence they would come out with. And honestly, putting out 2 games, every game had almost a 2 to 3 year cadence after the first one, after they built off the first one. It's sort of a miracle, the quality that they struck, the quality level that they had in releasing 1, 2, and 3 in a 6 to 7 year timeline. It's kind of fascinating. And with each successive entry, they got more and more popular until they kind of became a moderate success to even a big success. But Hitman 3 was probably the biggest of the three, I want to say. Maybe slightly under two now that I think about it. Um, but they gained steam with each successive release, and each time they kind of honed their craft. They kind of just laser focused on what made those games good, what made them important. So why should you care about any one of these games? You will find your enjoyment in anything that you play. The thing that is great about this game is that, oh man, the one thing I love about this game, I should say, is you can approach any situation however you want to, and the game has thought about that. It feels in constant communication with you as a player every step of the way. For instance, in my favorite map of the game, of any of the games, is Sapienza. It is this idyllic Italian countryside, kind of modern. It's kind of this like modern street in a little town square hooked to this large mansion. Um, it's more to it than meets the eye. It feels just like a regular Italian village, Italian town, and there's just it's every game is like an onion. I think the developers talked about it like that. They made their games onions. As you peel back layers of it, more things get revealed, more layers get revealed, more layers upon layers. There's just every hallway connects to a different route, connects to a different opportunity, connects to a different story, and there are different ways to attack many situations. And when it comes to these games, when it comes to these maps, you're playing these maps over and over and over and over to get the lay of the land, to get the optimal route, to get the you know best run. Honestly, it's kind of like the ultimate run-based video game, and it's as hard as you want it to be. It's as easy as you want it to be. Once you understand the schedules of each character, of each target, um, it becomes as easy or as hard as you want to make it. And the thing that I love about this game is each character, each main character, each even NPC has funny things to say, has specific things to say for given situations. And the things that they wrote for these characters to say are hilarious, and they make me laugh every time I hear them. They're just saying absurd things that NPCs don't say. Like I don't know, shoot a bullet in the wall just to kind of get a rise out of somebody, and they'll go like, "Oh, what was that? Don't be making that racket around here, buddy." Like just innocuous, funny line reads like that. Stuff that is hilarious to me. That just little bits of flavor. It has this sort of irreverent comedy, this dark humor about it that I really appreciate. Um, but basically, the structure of the game, it is these open zones where you come in with a loadout, and each loadout is, it's something you can pick based on what you've unlocked playing a given map, a given part of the game. Getting better at a map gives different items, things that you can use in successive runs in other maps. And it all really dovetails nicely with each other. So, for instance, if you want a specific weapon, they show you kind of like the mastery tree you need to attain to receive it, what you have to do to reach a certain level. Every time you discover something, you're adding experience to your account level, and that account level gets shared throughout your entire run of every one of the games. And making it account wide and making items be shared throughout every game, um, it's kind of amazing. It is a beautiful package. It's a complete package. It's a perfect video game. I think there's things that are not perfect in them, but I think for my money, it is the best package in video games that you can ever play. I think it is up there with some of the greatest trilogies, if not the greatest. I personally, for me, it is the greatest. Personally, that's just for me. Hitman World of Assassination. It's everywhere you can get it. It is absolutely phenomenal. the final game. The the game that completely bowled me over. The last time I felt overwhelmed by a video game. In a good way. In a way that I did not expect to contend with. A game that snuck up on me. A game that made me cry. And I'm not a crier. I'm just not a crier when it comes to video games. I can cry to the drop of the hat when I talk about my family, I talk about my mom, my dad, my siblings. This game completely rocked me over and made me feel insignificant and small in a beautiful way. It felt big. The preamble leads to Outer Wilds. I've told my podcasting cohort, Noah Rada, about this game. He better play it, because if he doesn't, we're going to have the problem. Outer Wilds is the finest game of 2019. It is top 5 as well for me. It might even be over Hitman on a given day. It is a masterpiece of a video game, top to bottom. Storytelling, presentation, music, especially music. Outer Wilds is a spacefaring adventure that is run on a clock, and it's not. Yeah, there's some similarities to some of these games of them being kind of run based or whatever. I'm not a big roguelike person. I'm really not. The one I've gotten the most mileage out of, besides this, really, is it's probably Hades. Probably Hades. I loved Hades. Loved every bit of it. I only beat it the one time. I never felt the urge to kind of go back and finish everything, even though the writing was very, very strong and the characters are even more so. But there's just something about Outer Wilds that compelled me to finish it completely. Even that completion being a pain in the rear, as it was. You have to find pretty much everything in the game when it comes to knowledge, and the game is governed by knowledge, and that is your progression in this game. That's why it's brilliant. That's why it has the juice. It's brilliant because the game is laid out where you can finish it as soon as you start it. Kind of like Zelda that way, like Breath of the Wild, where you can kind of defeat Ganon to as soon as you start your adventure. That is the main goal: defeat Ganon. Like, go defeat Ganon. And it just, man, this game completely bowled me over. Made me feel small. What I mean by that is you're kind of this little creature. You don't you kind of get sucked into this entire galaxy spanning adventure, and you don't really know what's happening. You kind of just wake up after dying and you go, where am I? What's happening? I thought I was dead. I'm alive again. Oh God, this entire universe is on a 22-minute clock. 22 minutes. When I talk masterpiece, I talk game design, I talk story. It has to be the total pack. There's very few games that hit this criteria. Hitman, World of Assassination, that's definitely one of them. Like Red Dead Redemption 2, that's definitely one of them. I would say Death Stranding is in a mechanical sense, because I think it's just so immaculate in the way it's designed. The story, not so much, so it's not a complete one. But this one is the total package. And it doesn't waste your time, but you have to be patient with it. The setup is you're basically an astronaut. You're this little creature who wants to go up into space, and you're trying to figure out what's going on in the universe. And you're in this little village, and all these people are kind of like explorers or would-be explorers of the wilds. Oh, there you can kind of see every planet from your homestead. It's this like little, I forget even the name of it. It's been a couple years since I played it. I mean, it's burned into my brain, the actual layout, because I've played it so much. But you kind of have this entire world above you that you can visit, and the fact that they designed for everything in the game to be reached in a 22-minute period is the fact that they even did that blows me away. It is so complex, so intertwined, so it feels like a ball of noodles, but you can find every noodle in the middle of it. It's so odd. It just it feels considered. It feels understood. They knew what game they were making, and they completely delivered. And the DLC is an extension of that, honestly. But why does this game have the juice? Why do I love it so dearly? So let me just talk about my experience playing it. I've kind of waxed poetically about what I think about it, but actually playing it is a different thing. I love space. I love space. Always have, always will. When it comes to genre, I think I'm more into like the medieval end of things. When it comes to like things being set in places, like just love a good sword clashing on a shield. Love a dragon. That's my thing. But this, I just love the idea of space. There's something romantic about it. There's something lonely about it. And this is all going to dovetail in kind of my one big experience with it. It's kind of a multiple experiences. That's what I love about this game. It just engenders stories in its play. Things that I really love in games is when they can inspire you to tell your own stories, inspired by the mechanics or the story. I was here when this happened. I was there when this happened. Um, Outer Wilds gave me the shock of my life. I have like endless stories about what happened. I remember when I was here. I remember I was there. I'm going to only get into a couple things. So the scariest thing about this game, there's no enemies in the game. You are basically getting into this space shuttle and you are flying into the cosmos and you are looking to see what's around, what's there, what's the meaning of the universe, what's the center of the universe, what's going on here. The game doles out information in spoonfuls, and you only go as far as your knowledge takes you. You have to pay attention to everything. You have to read everything. When you find out, and I'm not going to spoil the game because I think people should really find out what's going on with it, what makes it tick. Once you find out the main crux of this game, why there's a timer, who set the timer of the universe, you will be forever changed as a player of video games. It is completely profound. It touches on topics of personhood, about who we are in a given universe, about why life matters, why we're important in it, what the pursuit of happiness is. So many theoretical topics, but it never feels like up its own rear end or anything. It feels completely genuine in its messages and completely, positive in its thinking. It feels like the most positive cheery game there is when it comes to being optimistic. It has a feeling of optimism to it in kind of the midst of a bleak, apocalyptic ending of a universe. I mean, it kind of is that. Um, to even tell you the nature of the game would be spoiling it. So, like I said, I'm going to just dive in. I totally digress, but I'm just going to dive into my experience in playing this game. There's a part of this game where it's kind of the only real enemy encounter you have. There's basically space anglerfish, and you don't know this when you enter this area for the first time. I think it's called Brittle Hollow. I think it's Hollow Bramble, maybe. You're this you're this little ship, and you're basically piloting this ship, and you have a spacesuit too. If things go haywire, and things always go haywire, um, you go through this Hollow Bramble, and you're like, oh, I'm going to go explore. Just like everything else, you're kind of like genociding from left to right, up and down, and you're going like, oh, these are kind of like wormholes in this place. It's this a misty area covered with these like little spiky gumballs, little things that you kind of can enter in and appear at the end of something else. You find yourself in this area and you hear a sound that is like that of a vacuum cleaner with teeth. That's the best way I could put it. You're As soon as you enter this place, you hear this, yeah. You're like, oh my god, what is happening here? The next thing you know, a large, very large, angry space fish comes right at you, swallows you whole, and you die. and then you start over. It is, when I tell you, I screamed. I screamed so loud. I woke. I was living at home at the time. I woke members of my family up, and I had to have a conversation about what happened. Stuff like that, little stories like that, just really they just they fill me with this feeling of like, oh, this game is just special. This game is just important. Stuff that you always remember. You know, another good one, and it's kind of like the one I wanted to get to in talking about Outer Wilds. You finish the game, okay? And I'm not going to get into what it is, how it is, what's going on, whatever. There is a sequence that happens, and you kind of meet the people that you've been searching for along the way. And there is a scavenger hunt and a search for various instruments. And the song that has been playing you out over your journey is assembled. All your compatriots throughout the game. And when I tell you I bawled, I cried so hard at this part. It felt like the ultimate culmination of my experience. It was lonely, it was arresting, it was comforting at the same time. The insignificance I felt while my character was rolling around in space at the very end of this game is something I can't quite describe. It has to be seen to be understood. It is incredible. I don't want to spoil things. I just want to say that it is worth every second you put into it. It transcends video games, it transcends mediums. But I think it can only be experienced in this way with a controller, being there, playing it. I think if you made a movie about this game, it would be good, but you wouldn't be able to feel the same way. It has to be done in chunks and bits and pieces. Sometimes you're going to get frustrated. Sometimes you're going to try to land on a planet too fast and you're going to crash and you're going to fly through your windshield and break your oxygen and die in the vacuum of space and freeze to death. Sometimes that's going to happen. Sometimes you're going to try to get to the sun, the space station, and you can't get it in your spaceship because you're not on the right trajectory to land on it. So you get hit by the spinning space station and you die from lack of oxygen. Sometimes that happens. And, there's just so many little mechanical moments in it where there's total despair, but there's just an awestruck feeling you get from playing it. You go like, how is this able to be a thing? How do people think of this? I'm trying to land on this space rock and it's killing me. It's literally killing me. I can only be here for so long. And I know my time is limited, but I have to keep digging. I have to find out why these people are here. I have to find out what they found. I have to understand more about this universe. Everything relates to one another. The entire universe, every corner of it, every note, is the game reaching out to you and saying, listen to what we have to say. I think it's beautiful. I think it's pure poetry. Every aspect of this game needs to be experienced by any person that plays video games. Any video gamesman needs to play it. I think it's completely mesmerizing. The execution is immaculate. The music is, for lack of a better term, it's God tier. It is. It's that good. Andrew Prallo is. I keep this album on repeat. That's how good this is. The 22-minute song by Andrew Prallo is just. It transports me there. Not to mention even the soundtracks, the custom soundtracks I made. I made custom soundtracks just for drifting around the universe. I put David Bowie on, put Starman on, I put, Travis Scott on there with his Astro stuff, stuff that made me feel like I was floating, made me feel like I could reach the stars. it is a transcendent video game. It is a complete piece of masterwork. I don't understand how they made it. I don't. It stemmed from a student project, and I urge you to do this. I think you should play it first, play the game first, but go watch the No Clip documentary on the making of Outer Wilds, and you'll see how fully formed the idea was before they even started to make the functioning video game that we have today. It was a student project, and the fact that it was so fully formed back in that day, it shows how much they polished to bring us the piece that we have now. It is something everyone needs to play. That's all I need to say about it, really. Um, it's perfect. It's a perfect video game. They're so rare. I think there's only a few perfect video games. One of them is Mario Odyssey. And if you don't agree with me on this, you can go hit the road because it is. It is an absolute masterwork, that game. But Outer Wilds. If I was going to recommend any game to anybody, it'd be that one, probably. If you can give it your time, if you can give it your patience, if you can give it your attention, it will reward you in spades and it will leave you forever changed, like as a person. And I don't wax poetically about every game to this degree like I am now. I think this is taking up the majority of this podcast, to be completely honest with you. And I didn't want to hit, an hour runtime, but it looks like it might. I think this game is completely arresting and well worth your time. The juice has never been sweeter than it is here. You should squeeze every ounce out of this game. Every ounce. I'm going to talk about the DLC next. Okay? Echoes of the Eye subverts everything you know about the nature of the world that you just discovered, and it makes it about something else, but in a way that is even more mind-blowing. It took me forever to kind of figure out how that DLC ticked. Everything is on a clock as well. It sort of on a clock. It's like its own self-contained world almost. You have to reach it in the 22-minute time limit, but it kind of exists out of time, and it's kind of fascinating. It is about a precursor race that you do not see in the base game. They have been lurking for years. When you find them, they are completely invisible to you, and it feels like they could have been there the whole time, even when they weren't. The DLC was not integrated in the main game. The way that you find this DLC, you kind of maybe need to look up a guide to do it. That's kind of what I had to do. It's mind blowing, even if you do have the solution to get there. And I'm not going to get into, exactly what the hook is of that DLC. And I'm going to say one thing. When you get to a boat in the DLC, jump off of it. That's it. That's all I'm going to give you. That is the push I needed to finish that DLC. And it's a little hostile, this DLC. There's not enemies per se, but there are things that are hunting you. And it is not for the squeamish, it's not for the lighthearted, I would say. It's a scary video game, the DLC, and it feels like a different spin on the masterpiece you've already played. It is a masterpiece of a different color, different shade, different fabric. But they basically made Outer Wilds 2 and Outer Wilds. And the entire package is so completely shocking to me. How they came up with these ideas, how they actually institute the ideas, how they finished these mechanics, how they came up with the stories they're telling you. It's brilliant. I cannot wait for their next game. And who knows when that's going to be. But I know I'm going to be there for sure. I can't. I will probably take off of work for it. Like, it is that important to me to play their next thing. It completely flipped the way I think about video games. It rewired me in a way. When I picked it up, I was not the same person as when I put it down. And twofold, when I picked up the DLC and finished it, it's completely arresting. I think it is worth playing for everybody, for sure. That's going to end this podcast. This has been Crash Course. This is kind of just the juice, the games that have the juice, I think you should play all these games. I really do. I love every one of them. I wanted to get kind of deep into some of them so you understand what I'm talking about. I wanted to start more casual and end a little bit deeper, more profound about the games I actually really love. Love, and love every portion of. Uh, if you're going to play any of them, play Outer Wilds. Noah, you especially. You need to play this game. If you don't play this game, I will be mad at you, and we will have a spirited conversation about it. So these will happen hopefully in the week between our regular podcast episodes. For me, I've been Power Glover, and this has been Crash Course. Thank you so much.